Everyone, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you for
Good evening.
joining. Yeah. Okay, can you guys please confirm if my screen share is also visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we did yesterday. And again, thank you for joining our day two training session. Yesterday, we have discussed about the client and server architecture, where the client sends to the server the request protocol, HTTP methods, and the request headers. And from server to client, we get response headers, response code, response description, and the typical response. That's one of the prerequisite for our course to have a better understanding about how client and server works. And that's what we have discussed yesterday. And today on day two, let me also show my screen share here on the course curriculum. So we'll start off with chapter one. So today I will talk about a few of the keywords that we have in the security field that we have to be understanding before we deep dive into the vulnerabilities. So let me just put all these keywords in one new line. So these are the common keywords, whatever you are seeing on my application, that we use in the security industry, especially when you are dealing with clients. We use these keywords. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about a target first. Target is or target refers to the application that we are testing for security. Okay. Let me just cross check if the recording is on. Yes, it's on. Yeah. So when I say target, this is nothing but your application under test for security reasons, right? So if you are testing a web application for security, we typically call that's my target. If you're testing REST APIs for security, we call REST APIs as target, right? If you're testing at a database layer for security, then you say database is my target. So target is, this is the application which is under security testing purview. Okay, so that's the target. So this is a word that we are going to use throughout the course. Then we have threat. A threat typically means something like a bug, I would say, but bug is mostly used in your functional testing industry. And we know that security testing comes under non-functional testing. Under security testing, we don't use the word bug, we simply refer to the word threat. So a threat is not exactly a bug, it is something dangerous than a bug. So a threat is a technical weakness found in the target application. So instead of using the word bug, I'm using the word technical weakness, which means your application is so weak that technically someone can steal your data. That's what we call it as a threat. So I'll say this is the technical weakness observed in the target application. Now we know what is a target, right? Target is nothing but this target, the application that you are testing for security. So this is about threat. Then you have CVSS. CVSS stands for Common Vulnerability Scoring System. In a normal functional testing, when you find a bug, we assign the bug a severity or a priority, something like P1, P2, P3, P4 priorities, or S1, S2, S3, S4 severities, right? Something like showstopper, critical, major, minor, or urgent, high priority, very high, high, low. So in normal bugs, we have severity and priority. But in security testing, we use the CVSS as a mechanism to evaluate how dangerous the threat is. So CVSS is typically given on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a very dangerous threat, 1 being the minimum threat. So CVSS, it stands for Common Vulnerability Scoring System on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being low threat, I would say, and 10 being dangerous threat. Okay, that's CVSS. So when you find a threat in a target, we are asked to assign it one CVSS. So you can decide whether you want it to give on a scale of 10, 5 or 2 or 3. Most of the times, the automation tools that we use in security testing, such as Burp Suite or any other tool, when they find a vulnerability or when they find the threat, they automatically assign the CVSS. Okay. Now the word vulnerability and threat, they're almost the same. Okay. So whether I say threat or vulnerability, it is one and the same. Then we have CVE, Common Vulnerability Exposures. So this is a database maintained by the security industry, which contains what are the threat IDs found on the internet, what are the dangerous things that can happen if this threat is found on your production application, and how do you fix it or how do you mitigate it. So all that information of who discovered it, what is the CVSS of that threat, in which applications this threat was found, what is the solution to fix it, like what upgrades you have to do to the software. All those information is there in CVE database. So it stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. Okay. This is a database, or I can say it contains the database of all threats or vulnerabilities. I'll take you to the website where you will find all this information as well. So if I search for CVE, you see common vulnerabilities and exposure. So if you just go to this parent website, you can apply filter, you can search a lot here about all the vulnerabilities. So this itself is a big database of all the vulnerabilities that are there on the internet. So this is one official website. Or we can go to this one also, cvedetails.com. Waiting for the page to load. Okay, so here you can see the CVSS also, and they say how many vulnerabilities are found in CVE database whose scoring is between 0 to 1, meaning not dangerous bugs, 2911. But look at this 7 onwards. The list of vulnerabilities found on the internet whose scoring is more than 7 to 55,000, 28,000, 39,000. Overall, you see 2,20,321 vulnerabilities are found. And you can see vulnerabilities exploited in the last 7 days. 2. Last 30 days, attackers have attacked 14 production systems. So you can see almost every information here in this. You can also search for anything. You have filters here. One of the very nice websites that we will use in the upcoming classes to get more information about CVEs. Okay. Okay, let me take a pause here. Are there any questions, guys, on target, threat, vulnerability, and CVE? Any questions from anyone? Okay, you can unmute and say, guys, do you have questions or no? Am I clear until this point? Okay.
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now comes the three buzzwords: vulnerability assessment testing, then penetration testing, and security testing. Let us talk about vulnerability assessment testing. So, when we do security testing, we use a lot of tools to find the vulnerabilities or threats in the application. So, as part of security testing, the first step is to find a vulnerability by scanning the application. So you have some tools in the market which we use to scan the web application or to scan the APIs. And the scanner tool identifies a list of vulnerabilities and gives you a nice HTML report saying, these are the vulnerabilities we found by scanning the application. So that process of scanning the application and finding the vulnerabilities is called as vulnerability assessment testing. So you are not doing anything. You are just using the tool to scan the application and find the vulnerabilities. So it is the process of scanning the target application to find the list of vulnerabilities inside it. We just scan it and then we find vulnerabilities. So that process is called vulnerability assessment testing. There are so many tools in the market that helps us to do this. Example, Zap is there, Z-Attack Proxy. In Bob Suite also we have this feature, but in the paid version we have it, not in the free version. Then you have tools like Wookie. Then you have tools like Nmap, etc. Like this, there are hundreds of tools available in the market that can help you to do vulnerability assessment testing. Now, what is penetration testing? It is nothing but a continuation of vulnerability assessment testing, where you prove to the developer that whatever scanning we did and found a vulnerability, we prove to the developer that it is really present. So scanning tool just tells you that I found this, but developer says, can you exploit it and prove it? So you need to practically execute that vulnerability on the application and show to the developer, meaning he needs a concrete evidence at the database layer, at the front end layer, at the back end layer. Only then he believes. So that process of proving the vulnerabilities on the front end, on the back end, and at the database is called penetration testing. So it is the process of proving the discovered vulnerabilities by using a scanner tool. It is a process of proving the discovered vulnerabilities at the front end layer, back end layer, and or database layer by exploiting the target application using malicious payloads and multiple attacks on the target application. Okay. So penetration testing is not that easy. It is not easy for a tester to prove every vulnerability found by scanner tool. You need to spend a lot of time. Sometimes the time can go in months. A real hacker, whether he's an ethical hacker or an unethical hacker, they spend sometimes weeks to prove one vulnerability, sometimes months to prove one vulnerability. So penetration testing is a very big process. Okay, you have to physically prove that vulnerability existence on the front end or on the back end or on the database layer by using some more tools. Okay, again, the tools that we use to do it is also same set of tools. If you do scanning and find and give the report, it's just 10 minutes job or 30 minutes job. But penetration testing is not minutes, it's days, hours, weeks, months job. Now, finally, security testing. So it is nothing but combination of above two. So it is the process of combining the efforts made for vulnerability assessment testing and penetration testing. That is, Vulnerability assessment testing plus penetration testing is called as VAPT or security testing. So VAPT means vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, or simply security testing. So these are the differences between VAT, PT, and ST. Any questions here on point 5, 6, 7?
Could you explain the 7th step on inside?
Yeah, I'll do that. You mean security testing, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So security testing is a combination of vulnerability assessment testing followed by penetration testing. So when I do both 5 and 6, then I will say we are doing security testing. That's it.
Yeah, okay.
So your client will be very careful when they ask you for security testing. If they say we want vulnerability assessment testing, then you can stop the activity at scanning itself. If they say we have to do penetration testing, then you have to prove every vulnerability found. You cannot simply tell developer, yeah, there is a problem. If developer says, can you prove it? If you say no, then you are not doing penetration testing. Then you are stopping at this layer only. When the developer when you prove to the developer and to the customer, then you have done security testing. And if you have done both of them, then you can simply use the word security testing. Something like, let's say there is a person who is having stomachache. He goes to the doctor and he says, okay, doctor, I have some stomachache. Can you please help me? So doctor will check your abdomen, right? I mean, he will check the stomach using the stethoscope and he says, okay, looks like there is some gas formed. So if you take this acidity tablets, it will help you and you'll recover in 2 days. That is like vulnerability assessment testing. He just did a normal scan, I mean, using the stethoscope, he was able to do it. Now you have to believe the doctor because he comes with that expertise. But if you counter the doctor that, can you prove it that I have gas inside? Then he says, okay, go for a scanner, go to some diagnostic center, get the scanning done. These are the scan tests you have to get done. I'll prove it to you. That's like penetration testing. Okay. Where you want concrete evidences that it is there, we use the word penetration testing. Wherever you are not talking about evidences, but you believe that, okay, scanner tool has detected there is a problem in the application, we have to fix it. If you believe the scanner tools, then your testing can stop at vulnerability assessment itself. You don't have to go until penetration. Okay, and these are the common words we use in the security testing industry. Every day we use these words. Make clear on these things, especially on this. If you see this, any questions here, can ask me.
No questions, sir.
Okay, cool. Now, let's talk about the OWASP vulnerabilities. I think I should also talk about what is OWASP. That's another word I forgot. So OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project. It is the industry body that's helping the developers, that's helping the security testers understand all the vulnerabilities found on the internet and how to fix it. What are the upgrades you have to do to the frameworks, to the databases, or to the servers, or what is that you have to do to ensure hackers won't hack your application. All that information comes from this industry body. So I will say it stands for Open Web Application Security Project, and it is an industry body that aids developers and security testers to get insights about vulnerabilities, otherwise called as threats, found on the internet, and along with RCA and the possible fixes. So that's what OWASP talks about. And if you want to learn more about it, you can just Google it. OWASP.org is the official website. Okay, so you can see OWASP. Here you can read their articles, their YouTube, you can register to their events. You'll get a lot of fantastic information from this community. Okay, that's their official website, OWASP.org. Okay, then what OWASP does is every year they release the top 10 vulnerabilities found on the internet. So the top 10 might change every year. So today, if some vulnerability is at rank 2, last year it could have been at rank 1 or rank 3 or rank 5 also, or rank 10 also. So the list will change, the order will change, but most of the vulnerabilities at OWASP list are always the same. So top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities. This is the interview question, right? People will definitely ask you, can you tell me what are the top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities? And that's what I have written here. If you see, I've written more than 10 because all of them are important. If you restrict it to 10, you're missing out on few more. So I think I have listed more than 10 here. So I won't be writing again all those things because I have already here. Maybe I'll just copy and paste and give a simple explanation here. And how do we practically exploit it? How do we practically prove it? Happens from next class along with the tools. Okay. And there will be some exercises where I will ask you guys to do it on your computers by sharing your screen so that it becomes a very thorough training in two directions. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I tell, but you do it by sharing your screen. Okay, so that way you feel more comfortable, more confident on security testing. So there is this vulnerability called sensitive information disclosure. What this vulnerability says is your application deployed on the production environment, whether it is a mobile app or a website or a database or a desktop application, that application should not reveal its technology details, like what is the front-end languages developers used to develop that application, what are the back-end frameworks they have used to develop the application, what are the database details you have used to develop the application, on which server it is hosted, right? All this information are very sensitive to that project, and we should not reveal that to outside users on the production environment. Something like, see, today in the class I have like 6 people, right? So if I talk about Arnab, I know that his name is Arnab, but I don't know any information which is personal to Arnab, right? Example, I don't know his salary. If I know his salary, then sensitive information is exposed. If I know the kind of properties he has, the kind of money he has, it's all sensitive information personal to one person, right? We don't expose that information to outside world. So if I can somehow find all that information about Arnab or Venkatesh, then I say this vulnerability is found. And this is on a personal note I'm saying, but technically speaking, if I can tell you what is the programming language used to develop this website without asking the developer, without going to the development organization, I'm sitting at my home and I can find out in which programming languages they have used to develop it. What are the frameworks they have used at the backend, at the database, on the server side? What is the database they have used? Which server they are using? What is the CMS content? Where are the fonts coming from? Where are the images coming from? If I can tell all that information, then OWASP says this vulnerability is exploited because you are revealing that information from your source code. Hence, Kiran is using some tools to detect that information. That's called as sensitive information disclosure. Okay. Okay, going to the second vulnerability, we have using vulnerable and outdated components. So when your developer is using an outdated version of software, which because and it is vulnerable to attacks also, right? Because it is an old version. Typically, all the old versions are having security issues. Hence, new versions are coming in the market. So let's say your developer says we are using a framework called Express Framework to develop APIs. And the developer says we are using the version 1.3. But today in the market, the latest is 4.5. So your developer is not using the latest version 4.5. He's still using very old one 1.3. So when you know that the developer is using very old versions, then we say you are using an outdated component which is vulnerable for attacks. Then we say you are vulnerable for this third attack. Okay, sorry, the second attack using vulnerable and outdated components. So there are certain tools available in the market using which we can exploit that. Then incorrectly configured and missing response headers. So all the tools for each technique will be told in each of the classes when we continue from tomorrow onwards. The next one is incorrectly configured and missing response headers. Yesterday we have discussed what are response headers, right? It is the additional data that server is sending to the client along with response. So there are certain response headers which should be added by the developer when you go to production to protect your application. If the response headers are not added, we say missing response headers. Let us say the response headers are added, but the value given to it is not correct. Then we say incorrectly configured response headers. Something like, example, I will say content type is one response header. And let's say this header is not there. Then it is missing response headers. It is there, but the value given is text/JSON. Okay. So this is not a correct value for content, not a correct value for content type. Then we use the word incorrectly configured. So ideally it should be something like application/JSON. But instead of that, developer used text/JSON. So it's an incorrectly configured response header. So we'll talk about that using tools again. Then you have insecure design. Insecure design is where a lot of sub testing techniques are there in insecure design. I think a few of them is this one, open network ports detection. So in open network ports detection, okay, first you need to understand what is a port. So a port is a communication channel between client and server. And every communication channel has a port, and every port has a number. In the internet, every communication channel uses a port number. So that's called as network port. Example, now I'm sharing my screen. I'm talking using Microsoft Teams. So when I'm talking to you, a different port number is used. When I'm sharing my screen, a different port number is used. And on WhatsApp, I chat with my friends. For chatting, a different port number is used. I can make a video call, a voice call. For that, a different port number is used. You can make a group video call or a group audio call. Also, a different port number will be used. Okay. So we will talk more about all these things. Now I'm not getting into deeper. I'm just giving high-level understanding only. So network ports are communication channels between client and server. And these ports can have statuses like open, close, filter, block. Open means the port is open and the client and server can communicate with each other. So in a project, we should know what are the network ports that should be open and the network ports that should not be open. So in this open network port detection, we will detect whether the ports that are supposed to be closed, were they left open by developer by mistake? If yes, you found this problem, meaning a vulnerability is detected. And what is the problem if ports are open? We will talk about that more details only in the upcoming classes. That's open network ports detection. Again, I'll take a pause here. There are 4 vulnerabilities I have explained until this point. Do you have any questions on the ones that I have highlighted? Can unmute and say, guys, are you clear? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, clear. But can you tell me that tool name for the outdated version and everything? Find that, right?
Yeah, I'll tell them. I'll tell them in the upcoming classes, not now.
Yeah, okay.
Then we have server-side missing validations. So, see, whenever an application is developed, there are validations that happens on the front-end layer, on the back-end layer, and the database layer. So typically, front-end talks to back-end, and back-end talks to the database layer. So the validations that are done by the developers in the front end should also be equally present on the back end, and the same validation should also be there on the database. But when these validations are missing from front end to back end to database, we use the word server side missing validations vulnerability. So this is one of the important vulnerability under insecure design, which we will see in the upcoming classes again. Okay, so if I say that the validation on front end is I should not accept alphabets in the mobile number field. So on the front end, it's working, but did you test it in backend? Did you test it in the database layer at the table layer? If not, then you are missing on the whole testing process. That we are going to test it in server-side missing validations. Then we have broken access control. So broken access control talks about the access limitations present on a particular server. Whenever your access is broken, you cannot log in successfully, or you cannot log out successfully, or a wrong person is able to log in, meaning unauthorized people are able to log in. So all those login related problems, authorization related issues, they are simply classified under broken access control validations. Then we have SQL injection. So SQL injection, maybe I can also classify them as injection attacks. So here you have SQL injection attack. Then you have cross-site scripting. Then you have HTML injection. So in SQL injection, what we do is we check whether the application, meaning at a front-end layer, at a back-end layer, and also at a database layer, we check whether these front-end, back-end, and database can be manipulated by using SQL queries or non-SQL queries. Mostly we go for SQL queries because most of the databases are relational. So we check whether the applications can be exploited by understanding the SQL logic. Okay. Then you have cross-site scripting injection. This is where your front-end application or a backend or a database is accepting JavaScripts as input, and you are able to exploit it. So you are able to supply not normal text, but JavaScript as input to the application, and server is executing it, or backend is executing it, or database is accepting it. That's when we say cross-site scripting injection. So in this injection, you are checking with SQL queries. In this second injection, you are checking with JavaScripts. In the third one, you will check whether the front end or back end or database is accepting HTML code as input. If the HTML code is taken as input and executed by the application from the browser or from the mobile app, we say it is vulnerable for HTML injection attacks. Okay. Then we have IDOR attacks. So IDOR means insecure direct object reference. So insecure direct object reference is if I log into one application because I have the credentials, using my login, I can simulate as if Venkatesh has logged in and do the activities on behalf of Venkatesh. Okay, example I'll tell you. I'll log into Swiggy mobile app, and there is a dish. For the dish, I will give a feedback. 5 out of, on a scale of 10, I'm giving the feedback as 8. Because I was able to log in, I'm able to give my feedback, like scoring is 8 on a scale of 10. I can also give a comment that this food is so delicious. Now I can also write a comment as Venkatesh And the comment can be bad or good also. Maybe if I want to take revenge on Venkatesh, so I will say the food is so bad. And the comment will be entered as if Venkatesh is doing it. So if they come to know who is the owner of the comment, they will see Venkatesh name, not Kiran's name. But I have logged in as Kiran only. But how come Venkatesh name is coming for the bad comment? That is also possible in security testing if you do proper testing. And that's called as IDOR attacks, insecure direct object reference attacks. So we'll do some similar things, but not the one that I told you. Then you have JWT tokens abuse attacks. So JWT tokens abuse typically comes under broken access control only. I mean, almost the same, but the classification is different. JWT stands for JSON Web Tokens. So whenever you log in by using a username and password from the front end or using the APIs in the back end, a token is generated by the server and given to front end that use this token while you are inside the application so that we know from the server side that you are still a logged in user and we allow you to do all the actions. So a JWT token is a kind of receipt, an acknowledgement for the username password that you have given to server. So these JWT tokens are very sensitive and they protect your login access. So there are attacks happening by tweaking the JWT tokens by attackers as well. So you can manipulate the JWT tokens structure or the payload or the signature as well and do something as if you are someone else. Example I'll tell you for JWT tokens abuse. I have applied for a leave on my payroll system. Kiran applied for a leave and the manager is Richard. Now Richard is on leave for 2 days and I want a leave for tomorrow. Now Richard cannot approve it nor he can reject it because he is also on a planned vacation. If I can approve the leave by simulating Richard, it comes under JWT tokens abuse attacks because I will tell the system that I am not Kiran anymore. I am Richard and hence I'm approving the request. And I do it in the backend layer by simulating this. By tampering the JWT tokens. If I can do that, that comes under JWT tokens abuse. Am I clear on these things? Again, I'm taking a pause. These are the ones I've explained now. Are there any questions on these injection attacks, IDOR attacks, JWT tokens abuse attacks?
Yes. Only explain, elaborate the JW tokens of abuse.
Okay, sure. So typically what happens is you log into a server, right? So let me open Paint application. So this is your server. And this is the server and this is the client on the left side. So when I send a request to the server, and what do I send in the request? My username and password. So what does the server do? It gives me a response, right? So this response is like for a normal manual tester, it is like, okay, login successful. But we are not functional testers to see whether I'm logging in or not. So we check whether a JWT token is released or not by server. So this token looks like a payload like this. Okay, it's a payload. So this token is released by server and client gets it. This token has a lot of information which knows which person has logged in. So this knows which user logged in, which password he has used to log in. Now this username password belongs to Kiran, right? So I got the JWT token, but Richard has to approve it. But Richard says, Kiran, sorry, your leave may not be approved or Richard is on vacation. So if I tamper this token to simulate as if the data present inside the token belongs to Richard, and if I send an approve request in this payload, I will send one more approve request. This one goes to server and server will give me a response. Your leave is approved. So I'm telling you all theoretically, guys, okay, that it's possible. If Richard is logging in and approving, it's a normal case. Without Richard's notice, Kiran itself is applying for a leave and Kiran himself is approving it in the disguise of Richard. If I'm doing it by tampering the JWT tokens, then we use this vulnerability name, JWT tokens abuse. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, clear.
Sir, but JWT token is a very secure, like a 3.2 is coming, and this is coming from the server is making this JWT token in API. So how we can know that means it is an encrypted form, right? So it is impossible to decrypt this JWT token. So
Okay.
I don't.
So yeah, question is correct, but slight change. JWT tokens are not encrypted. They are encoded. They are base 64 encoded. You can decode it. If you decode it, you can change. And after you change, you can send it to server in the next request. In the next request, if the server understands that it is a valid request, it will approve my leave. The server detects that Kiran tampered something, then server will reject it. So I'm saying chances are 50-50. But in the world, on this globe, in the internet space that we have, there are hundreds of attacks happening on JWT tokens. And that's why OWASP has listed it in the top 10. So if OWASP has listed it, it is a proof that someone spoiled it, someone tampered it and did something on the server. And I will take one or two examples to show you proof.
Okay, so that's why currently we are not using JWT token. Instead of we use auth2 token, right?
No, I won't say JWT tokens are not being used. There are hundreds of algorithms available on the internet. Each company uses a different token concept. Maybe your organization is using OAuth2. I work with 5 clients. One of the client is using basic authorization. Another client is using bearer access token. Another guy is using OAuth2. Another guy is using JSON web tokens. Another guy is using AWS signature tokens. So it's up to the technology. It's up to the enterprise architect to decide which is correct based on their expertise. So JSON web tokens or OAuth2 tokens, they are still valid today. Nothing is outdated.
Okay, got it.
Okay, then we have few more. Security misconfigurations. So security misconfiguration is like the data that you are supposed to have on the testing environment somehow gets leaked onto the production environment. Then we say the application is vulnerable for security misconfiguration. I'll give an example. In most of your projects, when you're logging in, what is the common username and password that you think you always use, your developers give you? Most of the applications that you test, admin, correct? So correct. So you're right. User is also a common username password. Root is also a common username and password. Admin 123 is a common username password, or administrator is also a common username password, or welcome 123 is also a password. So on the production application, if you are trying these common usernames and passwords and you are able to crack some logins, then it's referred to as security misconfigurations. Because ideally that test data should be valid until test environment. From UAT environment onwards until production, this data should not be leaked or this data should not be allowed. So there are so many applications on the production that still work with user as login. Password, username as user, password as password, or root to root, all those things come under security misconfigurations. Plus some other definitions are also there. We'll also talk about them. Then we have brute force attacks. Brute force attacks or DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks means distributed denial of service attacks. So these attacks are typically aimed at hitting the server continuously, like 1,000 times, lakhs of times, to bring the server down. Once the server is down, then any real user who accesses the website, the server will give an error 503 service unavailable. That's when we say the distributed denial of service attacks is possible because one of the real user is getting impacted. I'll give a simple example. If someone is ringing my bell continuously when I'm in training, and if I open the door and I don't see anyone, but again after some time someone rings the bell and runs away, so I get irritated. So they are ringing the bell 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times and disturbing me when I'm in training. What do I do to prevent the problem? I go and remove the doorbell first of all so that he won't ring the bell again. So he successfully, the outsider successfully triggered me to remove the bell because there is a vulnerability I'm facing, the kind of disturbance. So that's called brute force attacks. Continuous attacks on a server and bringing it down is called as brute force attacks. Something like you're driving a car and if you honk continuously, the battery will die, right? So that's brute force attacks. Doing something continuously and bringing the server down. Okay, this is unrestricted access to sensitive business flows. This is like you're able to access the application in all the directions. No restrictions are given throughout the application. You can visit something thousands of times, hundreds of times, hit the request hundreds of times. So typically a rate limit is given by developers, but if it's not given, we say unrestricted access to sensitive business flows. Not an important one, that's one of the minor ones, but still you wanted to discuss. Then you have broken object level authorization, which is also called as BOLA attacks. So we also call it as BOLA attacks. So this talks about all the attacks related to login or authorization. Another name given to it is broken access control also. So the name has changed from in the last 2 years from broken access control to broken object level authorization, but it's the same. Then you have broken user authentication. That's also the same name, but different examples I'll give you for each one, but they're all one and the same. They're all related to breaking the user authentications. In different examples, you'll understand them. And finally, broken object property level authorization. This talks about the HTTP methods that we have. So when you're able to manipulate the HTTP methods and get access from the server, we use this word, broken object property level authorization. So these are the 13 attacks, and then you also have some sub attacks. So mostly 15 or 18 attacks are there that I'm going to help you understand in this particular course. Okay, and there are so many other OWASP attacks that are available, but since they are not relevant as of now, I'm not teaching them. But these are the mandatory ones that we have to go through. And after you complete this, and I'm sure you will get more better understanding of the remaining attacks as well. And most companies, they say we don't need all of them, just top 10 is enough. And I'm teaching you more than top 10, like top 18 I'm teaching you. That's more than enough. Okay, so with this, we have successfully completed chapter 1 today. Tomorrow, chapter 2, I think the focus will be on setting up all these applications on your laptops. And I might request one of you guys to share your laptops so that you can set it up. And others also will understand how to do it up. Okay. After the softwares are set up, then we'll go with chapter 3 onwards, using the tools to attack the applications. That's all I have for today, guys. Any questions from anyone?
No questions.
Question.
Okay, cool. So today I'm concluding all my free sessions. Tomorrow onwards, there are no free sessions. So if you are happy, convinced with the teaching style, and this is what you are looking in your career to upskill yourself, please talk to Isha team. They'll guide you on the enrollment process. And if you have any questions, also feel free to ask them on the WhatsApp group or maybe on a phone call. We'll be happy to assist you with all the questions. So looking forward for enrollments, and then we'll take it up. Fine. Thank you very much, guys, for your time today. I hope you have enjoyed the sessions. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.